everybody, Stephen Evans here with Evans Wealth Planning, and today I want to talk to you about inflation. It is a huge deal. It is a very important thing to talk about, and we're seeing it everywhere right now. It's so wonderful. I love when gas prices go from $1.60 to over $3 a gallon. It just makes me happy. I love spending over $100 to fill up my tank. It just brings joy to my life. No, it doesn't, but inflation is out there. We're seeing it, and this year's a great year to actually see like hyperinflation, where we're seeing 5-6%. If you want to get a chicken wing right now, I mean, my place where I love to go get chicken wings because it's one of my favorite foods, went from $11 to $16. That's inflation, and that's hyperinflation. That's fast inflation. But let's talk about inflation over time. So inflation's averaged anywhere from like 2.5 to 3.5% over time. There was the 80s when it was crazy. It was running rampant, but typically it's running anywhere between 2 to 3.5%. So with that, and you know, why does inflation happen? Well, if you've looked at our government, we print dollars, and we're printing a lot of them. We've added $22 trillion in national debt in the last 12 years, 13 years. We have piled on debt, and we've printed money to pay for all this stuff. You know, we have the debt ceiling limit, we have all these things, and they just keep printing money. Well, that makes our money worth less. So not worthless, but worth less. But it's something to think about. So like what I try to tell people is a way to think about it is every 10 years. So every 10 years, the dollar loses 25% of its value. So every 10 years, the dollar loses 25% of its value. So over 20 years, the dollar has been cut in half. And we can actually see it with going back in the time. When I was in high school and in college, gas was like 98 cents a gallon. In high school, 20 bucks. I mean, to fill my tank up, it was like $9, and I had $11 left over, and I was like, oh my God, I have so much money. I always think of the hamburger, like what it costs to go out and eat a hamburger meal. Like, I remember when I got out of college in like 2003, and you could go get a cheeseburger meal, like at a restaurant, a nice restaurant. It was like $6 or $7. Well, now it's like $11 to $14. You go to Black Sheep in town, $11 to $14 for a cheeseburger. You just don't really see it happening because it's happening slowly over time. But it's a huge deal. And one of the big things that I like to talk to people about is that you want your money to keep up with inflation. So basically, if you go out in your backyard because you're super conservative and you're like, I don't want to take any risk, I'm going to go bury, $100,000 in my backyard. Well, if you were to do that and in 20 years dig up that money, well, that $100,000 to buy the same amount of stuff, you're going to need $200,000. So you took a huge risk by burying your money in the yard because you lost 50% of its value. It just sat there. It didn't do anything. So if you're just hoarding tons of cash and holding on to cash, and all of your money's in cash, if you got $500,000 or $600,000 just sitting in cash, you're losing money. Like this year inflation, I think we're at 5%. So you've lost 5% of the value of your dollar. You're losing money. There is a risk. Every asset has a risk. Cash has a risk, and that risk is inflation. It's purchasing power risk. It is a huge risk, and if you're not keeping up with inflation, you are losing money. You're losing. You are. Because your money is being devalued by the government. And if you've looked at how much money we have spent in the last 12 years, I don't think this is going to go away, and it could be a lot higher. So if you are not protecting your money by at least trying to keep up with inflation, you are losing out. Another thing people forget to do is I had some clients, and for some odd reason, they like to do their own financial planning on their own. Like a couple of them have made their own Excel spreadsheets, and they're putting their investments in there, and they're like calculating how much money they need. Well, they didn't calculate for inflation, so they're not inflating what their current expenses are 30 years down the road to find out what their current expenses really are going to be. Because if you spend $100,000 a year now, in 20 years, you're going to need $200,000 to have the exact same amount in the same standard of living. So they're doing this and trying to do it themselves, and they forget about inflation. That's like the great part of a financial planner working with someone like us is we see this stuff every single day. And we understand all of the risks that are out there because all the different pieces. If you forget one piece, the little things add up over time. So if you forget about inflation and you're like, oh, I'm good, I've got $1 million and it's going to spit off $50,000, $40,000 or $50,000 a year, I'm fine. Well, you messed up. You needed $2 million because you need $100,000. So it is a huge thing to think about. It is a big, big suck of our money. So please remember to think about inflation and just remember, make your money work for you. I hope this was a good video and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.